I'll start by just offering some basics about who we are. Series B, we raised our Series B last April. Foundationally, we build a tool for people who make AI, so visual AI engineers. What I really like to talk about, and I'm going to ask to Josh to speak a little bit about our business, and Lane can talk a little bit about the culture. What I really like to talk about is from a sort of collective community standpoint, we are completely distributed. So we have folks all over the US and Canada, currently just in North America. We're all within a couple of time zones of each other. So, we were able to sync quite regularly throughout the week, and then we communicate asynchronously. Slack. In terms of the team and sort of how we've grown, we're now at almost 50 people, which is a really exciting sort of turning point for us. Josh is going to talk a little bit more about just statistically how we've gotten there. But I can say, sort of spoiler alert, that we doubled our headcount over the last 12 months exactly. Both Josh and I are new since then, new in that interim period, but have really been kind of heads down growing engineering and some go-to-market strategy hiring as well. I'll just circle back to the piece that I started to talk about with respect to our distributed environment. We really believe that people do their best work when they're in a comfortable space, and for most people, that's some version of home office, local coffee shop, local WeWork, what have you. And so, what we really do by allowing people to work where they're most comfortable is we meet them right where we meet them where they are with whatever they're working on professionally and then also personally. So whether it's having pets, I'm not sure if you all could just hear my dog barking. It was very stressful for me. I'm hoping no one could hear her. Awesome. I was just kind of trying to keep talking and hoping that you couldn't hear her. But yeah, we basically accommodate, right? We are inclusive through accommodation, whether that's, people are dealing with pets, their pet parents or their people parents, or they're, taking care of other folks in their families and their lives, managing extracurriculars, right? Continuing to learn, having that growth mindset. And so I think we really have created an environment where all of that is quite encouraged and supported. Josh.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Remy. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh, VP of Engineering at Voxel 51. Let me just start by giving you just some basics about our engineering team. As Remy said, we're fully remote, all in North American time zones. We have 20 engineers today that are divided up into 4 squads of 3 to 6 people, 3 to 7, actually. We just hired one. Our tech stacks are Python on the back end and TypeScript everywhere, but that's, I guess, how TypeScript works. And we actually are not so much a SaaS product. We're primarily deployed into our customers' cloud or on-prem. Our customers care very deeply about the security of their data. And so they prefer to keep that in their own environment. And so we, again, meet them where they are to help them be successful. So actually, as Remy said, I'm also relatively new, joined about 6 months ago. Lanny here is the elder statesman in this conversation. I just wanted to share a little bit about, the biggest reasons for me to join. And one of those is really the impact that the product has. As you've probably noticed, the AI revolution is coming, or maybe even already here. But what we get to do is enable those teams that are building AI models to build models that are less biased, more safe, more reliable, more accurate. It helps them get this new magic out into the world in a way that helps everybody. And we're helping in a ton of different industries: healthcare, autonomous vehicles, robotics, agriculture, retail, sports, and more that I'm not even listing. And we're also not just for big companies. We have a vibrant open source community, includes students and researchers and academia to machine learning professionals. And of course, we do have a growing community of enterprise customers. Uh, Another thing I really love about working here is we're not just building a great product, but we're also making big investments into innovation. Rami mentioned that Series B we raised last year, and we used some of that money to hire up a team of machine learning pure research folk led by one of our co-founders, Jason, who's a research professor at University of Michigan. And what's great is that they do this groundbreaking research that we then get to incorporate into the product. And being able to talk about the stuff that they're doing is one of the ways we continue to be a part of like the conversation in cutting edge artificial intelligence. But it's not just for like marketing purposes, not just for the product. We also want to include everyone at the company. And so every week we have a meeting called the ML paper review, or every other week, where someone will like take one of these papers that's in the cutting edge of research and present it to the company so we can all grow and learn. All right. With that, let me hand things over to Lanny. Lanny's one of the engineers on our team working most directly with the machine learning team. And she can talk more about what it's like to work here.
Yeah, hi, my name's Lanny. So I've been working at Voxel 51 for 2.5 years. I worked on the open source app and the enterprise as well. So working in Voxel 51, I feel one thing I really enjoy is actually working with people who are actually kind and very respectful. It's just a pleasure to like work with them. And we work in a very remote setting, but you never feel like you're working actually in silo. We communicate a lot. And for me, I feel I actually know all the engineers, not only the one within my squad, on every topic. Whenever I think people who are relevant, always they're super happy to when I reach out to them and have a good discussion. Also, the second point is I think we enjoy a certain level of autonomy of being able to come up with the solution and the design of fixing something ourselves. And we have that trust among the team and having that flexibility. And third, being in the growing, like really rapidly growing space for AI. I feel in every squad, we were able to tackle the most up-to-date problems in the industry. And that for me, like I feel very driven and excited for tackling those problems there. That's the MLE, like they need the tools they're facing every day. So that get me very passionate and enthusiastic about the problem I'm solving. Also, the company, I feel we value the transparency and clarity a lot. It's not only we try to bring that from data insights, but also I feel within the org and engineers ourselves too, we try to have all the docs and meetings, so it's easy to find records, even if it happened async, like we weren't there at the moment. Also, as engineer, every year I think we can pick a conference to go. And previously, I have been going to the CVPR. And today, one of my coworkers shared a great news with me. Me and he had a paper got accepted by ICML 2025 related to climate AI. He's actually a software engineer. He's not an MLE. So that's really exciting. And that's my perspective for working as an engineer in Voxel 51.
Great. So this is the time that we normally go into breakout rooms, but I think today, since we have only 2 companies joining us and one of them is sick out today, we'll just stay here and I will ask you all more questions that I have prepared. But first, I wanted to see if anyone else has a question in the chat or if you want to raise your hand.
Can I preemptively say that I'm going to put my email address in the chat? People are starting to message me with my name. It's going to be hard for me to keep up. So let me go ahead and put my email address in there right now. And if you do have a question or a curiosity, after this meeting, you're welcome to just shoot me an email directly. That would be really helpful. If you're going to do that, include your LinkedIn profile. Thank you.
Great. So I'm looking through the chat and there is a question. Are there opportunities for technical writing roles, documentation or similar? Asked by Nessa.
Right. So that would be the kind of, that's Nessa's note is actually what prompted me to say that I was going to share my email address right now. Let me outline the roles we have open at the moment. Now, keeping in mind that we are a small organization, we're hiring in a very disciplined capacity, right? We want to be really protective of our runway. And so we are hiring and we will continue to hire. We're not opening the floodgates by any means. So if you don't see it on our website, it's probably not open right now, just to be clear. Having said that, what is open? We have a principal engineering role open. Please note that this is full stack. I need somebody who has React and Python. That's the game plan. It's principal level, so they have to have some combination of hands-on coding, a desire to continue to write production code, architecture design, and mentoring. Ideally, we're not too married to number of years of experience, but this is a very senior position. So it's not going to be appropriate for somebody who's early in their career. I am hiring for a pretty nuanced machine learning engineer. This is specifically a machine learning engineer who wants to spend their time largely interacting with our enterprise clients. Not in a solutions capacity, right? So I'll clarify, we don't have a services division. We're not solving problems for our end user, but we are creating solutions with them. And so that's really what this person will be doing 80% of the time. This machine learning engineer, ideally computer vision engineer, is relationship managing and solving problems with our users. And then we have an SDR role open, which if y'all know an SDR, that's a sales development representative. It's typically going to be like a pretty non-senior salesperson, somebody who does a lot of the basic kind of cold emailing, warm emailing, introducing. If you've ever been pitched a software solution, it's probably those pitches are coming from SDRs. It's a heavy lifting role, but it's a really good way to break into software sales. And so typically we'd be looking for somebody with about a year's worth of experience as an SDR. Little bit more flexibility with that one. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about those roles specifically, that's what I'm about to put my email address in the chat to answer. And you're welcome to reach out directly.
So the next question that I see here is, how does product management fit into AI industries?
That sounds like a Josh question. Yeah, so this is I don't see who asked that, but just to clarify, you're asking like how do we use
Susan
product?
Gale Green.
Susan, awesome. Susan, are you asking how do we use product management to deliver what we're building? Or are you asking how we see our customers using it? Awesome. Yeah. So we use it, I don't think in a particularly innovative way. Our product manager still does the sort of things you would expect, gathering ideas and insights from our customers, from people internal to the company, from wherever else ideas can come from. Works those ideas into something more concrete and solutions to actual problems, and puts them through like a product development process. They'll go through design, they'll get verified. Like we'll put those designs in front of our customers and get their feedback. They'll work with the engineers to break it down into tickets. And then of course there's on the more research side, during that kind of ideation phase, there's a conversation that happens about, where do we see potential research complementing a feature like this? What's something we can do to build this feature, not really like just the way a competitor might build it, but in an innovative way, or give it capabilities that nobody else in the industry has. Or sometimes it's even like, what are we seeing our customers trying to do that we think we might be able to research a solution for them so that they can achieve their goals through us more easily than having to build it themselves. How'd I do, Susan? Does that basically answer your question? Awesome. Thanks so much for asking.
So the next question I see is about the interviewing process from Alora Munson. So curious about your thoughts on multiple round interviews. Some companies have up to 6 rounds.
Yeah, I can take that one. I'm actually just scrolling up to see if I can identify. Okay, Laura, got it. Yeah, so it does depend on the open role, right? How many rounds we do. I will say that I think we work very hard to be quite thoughtful about utilizing the candidate's time appropriately and making sure that we're getting enough information so that we can make an informed decision. Josh in particular is probably the most thoughtful interviewer I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Don't tell my other executives that I said that. It's really extraordinary. I mean, truly, I've been recruiting for 20 years, and I feel I've learned more from Josh in the last 6 months as a point person hiring manager than probably anybody in my whole career. So that's been really great. Maybe I should let him answer this question. Here's what I'll say. For a leadership role, yeah, there's probably going to be 6 rounds. We don't often assign any type of take-home technical test. That's not really our approach. We want, sort of real-time conversational kind of, resembles a day-to-day situation type interview process. But, you got to meet both co-founders, right? And you have to meet Josh probably twice. He's the VP. And if you're interviewing for a very senior role, I mean, I would want to meet him more than once, right? He's going to be your direct manager. That's 4 conversations right there. Plus, you still want to meet at least 1 or 2 engineers from the team in some capacity. So there's your 6. If I'm a software engineering manager, or, to some extent, possibly even this principal engineer, I mean, to me, that feels pretty reasonable, even though it sounds like a big number. What I will say is, I manage all of recruiting, including scheduling, and I'm relentless with scheduling. Josh can attest. So, if there's a positive signal and both parties are quite interested, even though there might be a number of steps, they can happen rather quickly. And we do our very best to schedule them in like a very appropriate, manageable amount of time. Typically, I shy away from setting up individual interviews that are more than 90 minutes. I think that starts to get a little too lengthy. But it's possible to meet 2 separate people on the same day. I will say, for anybody in this market right now and anybody who's sort of earlier in their career, y'all maybe don't know what it used to be like. You used to have to go on site to the company's actual office, even if you didn't live in their city, and sit for 8, hours of interviews for a whole day. That's what it was like. It's obviously not like that anymore. We do everything virtually. And so we make it accessible, even though it may feel like quite a few steps. For a non-leadership, very senior role, try to keep it to 3 or 4 steps. There's just fewer people to meet at that level. Hopefully that answers your question, Laura. If any clarifications are needed, by all means.
For the record, I have nothing to add to that, Rami.
Except you remember, Josh, probably back in the day, having to put on a suit, go to an office, sit in front of a bunch of people you didn't know for hours and hours, maybe eat lunch with them. I don't know. It was like a totally different scene.
Yeah.
Interviewing virtually is quite a delight, frankly.
I remember my first jobs were in New York, where I did have to put on a suit. And then I moved out to California and I went to my first interview in a suit, and everyone was very confused. And I never did it again.
That's true. There are definite coastal differences, and also just, I mean, it's just everything's changed now.
We have a question from Julissa Cotillo that says, can you talk about the ML AI stack? Are you hosting your own trained models or leveraging third-party providers? And if so, which ones?
Yeah, great question. I may not know this as well as Lanny, so Lanny, please correct me if I get this wrong. Or do you know the answer and you can just answer it?
We are data centric, so we actually are open and very flexible. So in people's AI stack, like we are not the throttle that you would have. We integrate with all the popular tools actually.
Yeah, exactly. So you can easily like load and apply pre-trained models. We have this thing called the model zoo that's full of models that you can just kind of grab and run using the system. And then we have, yeah, as Lanny said, all sorts of integrations. But we're not directly as like part of our system, like hosting models on any kind of external provider.
There's a question from Garima about a tech program manager role. Is there any maybe opening in the future?
No, I mean, that's the kind of thing that it's pretty tough to predict exactly what we'll be hiring for in 2026. That's not on the map for 2025, but email me.
A question from Ashley Spear. What are you looking for as a cultural fit? Yeah, cultural fit.
Let Lanny jump in. If you want to get in the loop here and chat about that.
Yeah, I think first of all, like being a genuine person to communicate with, because no one like to work with like assholes. And then second, being also able to work very independently because we are trying to solve the issues that we're working with like to a certain degree level because we are remote. And so being able to get deep into the things and push it forward yourself, that's and also when there is an issue, I love that in general here, rather than complaining about it, usually people look at, okay, what things need to be done, and then we start working on it.
Yeah, thanks, Lanny. I'll add one or two things to that. I think it's really important that we're building a culture. Every new person you hire adds to the culture, right? And it's important we're building a culture that is low ego. We're not looking for people who think they have all the answers, but ones who are good at collaborating with their squad and helping to pull out everyone's great ideas and have the best ones rise to the top. And yeah, just able to have like really good collaboration and productive conversations, willing to jump in and help one another. Because as much as people do like to get heads down when they run into an issue, they're quick to post it on Slack as they should be. And there is always an outpouring of people be like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Let me jump in. And it's really important. What we're building is complicated, and building it to work with every possible customer scenario makes it even more complicated. And so there's a lot of wisdom on the team, people who've been there a lot longer than me, who are able to help everybody navigate that.
And I'll just add a sort of personal theory, I guess, or philosophy I have, is that if somebody has demonstrated the capacity to care deeply about something in their life, right? And whether it's an extracurricular, could be a sport, could be, they don't even have to be playing. Like they absolutely love the Lakers. Like if somebody demonstrates to me in the first conversation that they have passion for something, I believe then that they can have passion for their job. And so that's like a really good signal for me typically. So when you may hear different perspectives on this, but if there is an opportunity in your interviews to just tie something back to what you do on the weekends, right? The manager mentions a book that you happen to have read, or something like that, right? Even if you're just asking the person, hey, what do you do on the weekends? What are you looking forward to doing this weekend? And you can tie that back to what you do. Personally, for me, that's a really good signal. So I do look for that. It's part of what differentiates people, right? And people hire people. So be a person.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question from Shagufta about the hiring process. Does Voxel 51 focus primarily on visual AI and computer vision models from what they saw on the website, or do you also work with data models in other AI domains?
Yeah, great question. So right now we are 100% focused on computer vision use cases. Is that always going to be the case? Can't say. But right now that is really our focus, and I can say this confidently, that's going to be our focus this year. But we're always having conversations about other places we can expand into. It's a really exciting space, and the kind of things that we do, which is basically help people to leverage their data to build great models, is not specific to visual AI. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
Great. So, a question from Laura Munson about the interview process. Wait, did we already do that? Sorry, it just keeps jiggling this little chat window. A question. From Abigail, could you talk a bit more about the AI privacy security issues you're tackling?
So Abigail, when you say the ones that we're tackling, do you mean, I feel like I'm asking the same question I asked before. Are you saying like the privacy and security issues that we tackle for our own software, or how we help our customers with the privacy and security of the AI they're building? For our own. Sure. So because we deploy everything into our customers' clouds and into their prem, our issues about AI privacy and security aren't so big. And certainly when we make our own models, we're very thoughtful about what data we're using to train it. Using data to train models is kind of the thing that we do and help to do. And we're certainly like not taking proprietary data, or we're being very responsible about the data that we use to train the models that we do. But the application that we make, full of the pre-trained models and the models that our customers are making using the data, because it's all on-prem, we don't have to worry so much about their data leaking through our product to go anywhere. In fact, we have a number of customers that have like a fully air-gapped solution of ours that they use. So I guess one of the things that we do is we build an air-gapped solution. So to just kind of eliminate any concerns that customers could have about how we're handling privacy and security. Which I should add, the team built before I joined and was a huge effort. So Lanny and the rest of the team should be very proud of that. It's not most companies at our scale that have an air gap solution, and it's been a great advantage for us in the industry to be able to offer that.
Sudeepti has asked about the technical interview. What are your thoughts on using HackerRank style interviews, given AI tools like Copilot is something developers use on a regular basis for developer productivity?
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Answer? Oh, you go, Raymond.
Sure.
You go.
Well, I was just gonna say, I just don't care for HackerRank style interviews. I think they don't appropriately mirror what the day-to-day life of an engineer looks like. Furthermore, it's essentially it's a test. You can prepare effectively for HackerRank style questions or LeetCode style questions, but I don't really think it's doing anybody any favors. I will say, and maybe, I mean, I want Josh to answer this because he's excited and that makes me happy. But if you're ever using AI in an interview, the interviewer knows. It doesn't matter if you think they don't know, they know. Now, they may have said you can, which is fine, by all means, but you're never like getting away with it. Just FYI. I don't think that Sudeepti that you're trying to. I'm just saying, like, for everybody, overwhelmingly, if you are, as a recruiter, what I see a lot is I'll jump into a first conversation and the person won't have done research, which is a different conversation for a different time. And I can see that they're looking us up real time and reading to me what we do. And I have to time out. I don't need you to pitch me, right? I have to like backtrack. So we can always tell when you're using your computer to look up something up, whether it's AI or not. Josh?
Yeah, so totally agree with that. I'm very much against those sort of HackerRank LeetCode style interviews with or without AI. When I think of technical interviews, my goal is to put you in an environment that is as similar as possible to what you'll be doing day to day, right? So if you code with AI, then you should be coding with AI, right? If you're normally able to use whatever libraries you want and Google answers to things and talk something through with somebody else, then all of that should be available to you in the interview. And so that's kind of how we like to structure the coding part of the technical interview. It's like as close as possible to like pairing with a colleague in your own environment on the language that you're most comfortable with, on a problem that like is not a LeetCode problem, that we can have a conversation about trade-offs and software design and like all the sort of things that you normally have conversations with your teammates about when you're actually completing a ticket. And that's what the technical interview is about for us.
So I guess we can go on to our questions that we came up with. If no one else is going to ask questions, I will ask questions. What are some qualities and experiences that make someone successful at Voxel 51?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of some of what we've already shared. Certainly curiosity, right? Definite passion for what we're building. I don't know that you have to come in with that. I mean, it certainly helps, but once you get the lay of the land, like really diving in and wanting to be here and wanting to be part of what we're building, being kind and thoughtful, I think, to be sure. I am 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100 times the very first person that somebody interacts with respect to Voxel. And so from a candidate standpoint. And so there are some things that are important to me, right? Like, I don't care if you're running late. I do need you to let me know, right? As an example, right? And again, like things happen, issues pop up. Occasionally I'm running late, right? Like I get it. We all have, but that being like transparent and communicating is really important. I had another point I was going to make. Well, I mentioned curiosity because I think that's the big one. Really understanding the why behind what we're building, and then kind of bringing your own why to the table. Josh?
Yeah, that's great. The only thing I would add is we are still very much a startup. We're not planning like multiple quarters ahead in detail, although we have like a broad roadmap plan. Like things come up in like a partnership or a customer, and we surprisingly need to drop everything and jump on that. So having a certain level of flexibility, if you're used to more of a big company job where things are all laid out and nothing ever interrupts your sprint, like we do everything we can to not interrupt the sprint. Like we do try to respect that, but much more than other places, things are going to come up. And people who can get excited that, oh man, if we switch gears right here, we have this huge opportunity. You're going to be a lot happier than if you get frustrated every time something comes up.
So we have a question from Abby. What types of companies do y'all hope to work with, and what tasks are the AI used for?
I mean, oh, yeah, Laney, you go.
We work with a wide range of industries, from autonomous driving to defense, and from modern agriculture, to robotics. Yeah, so it's very satisfying. Like sometimes seeing the customer success engineer post the abstraction of the problem, like the customer encounter, and see the scenario that how like we were able to help. Yeah. So it doesn't we don't really have a specific setting or a specific industry that we're anchored to. It's really a wide range of applications that can on issues that we can solve from visual AI. So any AI industry that work with visual images, videos, 3D, point cloud, etc., we can work with that.
I have a question. What ways does Voxel 51 engage with the open source community to drive the data-centric AI revolution?
What a well
Every
phrased.
way.
Yeah. Sorry, Raymond, did you want to start answering?
In every way. But Josh, you go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll name a couple of ways. Like we have a vibrant Discord that we maintain to like support people in their 51 journey. We have a whole bunch of events, meetups, hackathons. Um, Man, actually trying to think of all the stuff. Like we have a whole community slash DevRel team that just spends 100% of their time supporting our community. I couldn't possibly, someone else jump in and remember all the other things that they do.
Yeah, and also on GitHub, we actually have a very active community. We have this thing called 51 plugins that allows to transform. So a lot of the MLEs, they know Python really well, but they don't write React or TypeScript. But they hope to use the app like to make a little tweak, and then they can use it better. So that plugin system allow them to use Python code to generate that UI to build their unique workflow for them, and they will share it on GitHub. So that allow us to see, hey, what people are working on, what's the need, and we do work with the engineers there too to just bring the new features in and merge new things from the community. So it's a very active community.
Shagufta is asking out of curiosity, why is the product called 51?
I
Please go ahead, Lainey.
I listened to one of the podcasts done by Jason and Brian, and they did talk about the name Voxel 51, where it come from. Voxel is the pixel in the video setting, a three-dimensional setting, and then 51 came from the unknown, the alien zone 51. So it's meaning that we're exploring some unknown.
I think that's the true answer. I was given a different answer years later when I joined. Voxel still means voxel, a 3D pixel. But they said, you know, our product helps you find a needle in a haystack. So, you know, if you have 1,000 needles, which needle is it that you're looking for? Maybe it's needle 51.
Okay, from Angela, what is the workflow from customer request to end solution? Is the data a mix of synthetic and annotated? And as a part of that process, are you also working with human annotators?
Okay, I think I can answer this. So if you're talking about what does the customer, what's the customer workflow as they're using us to solve their problem? And how does annotation connect with that? Am I getting that right, Angela? So when you say customer request, it makes me think like they're asking us to do something, but really I think yeah. So I'm going to answer that question. So customers, they come to us typically because they have a ton of data and they want to use that data to make an AI model. Sometimes they've been trying to make an AI model with that data and they just can't get it accurate enough. It's got blind spots, it has issues, and they need our product's help to get it over the finish line. And so they use our product to explore the data and understand, right? So, there's training data and test data. And so they'll look through the data to see like what's missing in their training data that is preventing the model from learning the things it needs to learn to have a full solution that covers all cases, is like less biased, is accurate in more situations. And so our product helps to kind of highlight those gaps for them so they can figure out what additional data, for example, they need to get labeling for. And then they can label it and then add it to their training set. And then they use that to train the model. And then they check the accuracy of the model again. And there's this like virtuous loop. As the model gets better and better, then we highlight more and more subtle areas where it can improve, and they get more labeling and they improve. And so that's kind of the cycle there. We've got some cool things in the works for how we can help support the annotation side of that we'll be announcing later this year. But for now, we really kind of stay out of the annotation business. We're partners with a whole bunch of annotation companies. And so when it comes to the annotation part, they'll just ship the metadata over to them, and they'll get the labels and they'll import the labels over to 51, and the cycle continues.
The next question from Abigail is super loosely around what percentage of employees at Voxel 51 are women or non-binary?
25%.
Great. So that's the last questions I see in the chat. I will ask a question that we had prepared. Does your company support lateral career moves, such as switching between engineering, product, or management roles?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very much case-by-case basis. But we've had people move in many directions. We've had conversations with people about movement as well. I think it's my job as a leader and the managers on my team. It's our job to support you in the growth of whatever direction you want to take your career. Hopefully, that's something that we can do within the company. But if not, then I think part of our job is to help you make that leap from us to the right place for you to continue that growth.
And how does Voxel 51 support new employees during the onboarding process?
Well, I think bigger picture, it's maybe not yet totally a scalable process because our COO, who's incredible, spends like the first half of the first day with every single person who starts. There's only one of him and he has 100,000 other responsibilities. So I'm trying to start the conversation about how we can make more scalable, iterative onboarding, but it is going to be a combination currently of our COO getting the person situated on day one and then handing them off to their direct manager, and the manager will take over setting up, ensuring that they have all their appropriate one-on-ones, they meet everybody, they get ramped up, they have the right curriculum. Another thing that our developer relations team does, earlier someone had asked how we interact with our open source community. And the answer is, as Josh and Lanny both said, there's a lot of avenues, one of which is we have a dedicated computer vision DevRel team. They create a lot of curriculum and content. So even before someone starts, if they want to, they can watch the Coursera course on Voxel 51. They can check out our LinkedIn Learning Lab. There's resources out there. And I believe that those also help with the onboarding. And then we do twice weekly all hands. So no matter when you start during a week, typically it's Monday, you'll get introduced to the entire community real time virtually. And there's like a whole series of like shout outs and introductions and stuff.
I'll read another question from the chat. Melissa asks, how does Voxel advise customers on infra as well, e.g. computing power, memory, storage, and how often do infra needs change as amount of models or nature of model data grow?
Yeah, this is a great question. So we do absolutely that's a big part of the onboarding process for new customers is advising them on how to scale their infrastructure and helping them to get it right, and helping them to adjust it over time as those needs change. It's absolutely something we do. We have an infrastructure team, and that helps set those kind of standards and advise. And it's as we continue to develop, like this year, we have a big initiative for performance. We revise those guidelines to say, oh, if you want to take advantage of these performance improvements, you're going to need more cores on these machines and yada, yada. So it's an ongoing developing thing that is a central part of how we set up customers for success.
There's a question from Abby looking at y'all's open source library in GitHub. Can this tool be used to process non-visual data like observability metrics or complex text?
So with the caveat that Lanny mentioned, that we have a very powerful plugin system that you can do quite a lot with. The core product right now is just images, video, 3D meshes, point clouds, and other kind of visual media. But your question leads us to the same thinking that we have, that the same approaches we're taking could be expanded to other formats.
Thank you for that. Angela asks and says, thank you. It helps on the scope of the product. Notice defense work. As part of the modeling, are you also looking at red team and pixelated attacks? Are you also suggesting emergent models to clients?
So as far as like emergent models, if I'm understanding that correctly, the model zoo that I mentioned, we try to stay pretty up to date on that. So whenever new like industry models get released, we are quick to add them to the zoo so everybody can get access to them and run them really easily inside of 51. The customer success team, and Rami was talking about, we're looking to hire one more person for that team. They certainly do advise all of our customers on best practices and strategies and approaches that they may want to take to help make their work as successful as possible. They are more expert than me on what strategies they recommend when, so I can't answer that particular question.
Athena asks, how do you maintain transparency and collaboration while managing a remote team?
So I don't want to just assume I should talk, but
Go for it.
Has
Okay.
there
Thanks. So maintaining transparency is like a constant vigilance. I think that's like part of the responsibility of leadership to like go out of their way to be sharing context and being transparent about decisions and directions and possible directions. That's just a kind of decision that we make at the leadership team. One of the reasons I was excited to join as a VP here is because I knew that was a core value of the leadership team, and it's basically a non-negotiable for me. I don't know how to lead a team without being transparent. So I think you get just like everything just gets easier if you're willing to put in the time to be transparent with folks. So, and I guess the rest of the leadership team agrees. So we do that. Collaboration remotely is tricky, and it's something that we are always talking about and iterating on, particularly remote across different time zones. And I think part of it is just figuring out what are the key touch points where collaboration is most valuable. So, we do our regular sprint ceremonies. And so, like, planning out the work we're going to do for the next couple of weeks in a sprint is an important touch point for collaboration, as well as figuring out like where do we need more collaboration in order to figure these tickets out or come up with a plan. Or the one of the squads, the back end squad, is doing a lot of tricky performance work right now. And so there's a lot of a couple of people get together and do a brainstorming session, write up a doc, and then they'll share the doc, and then everyone comes together and discusses the doc and gives feedback. But I think it's really about just like creating the right habits and processes and figuring out those touch points. I'm always a big fan of pushing for just code pairing and just sitting next to each other virtually and pairing on a problem, whether it's coding or writing up a doc or whiteboarding or whatever. And then, like I said, time zones become tricky because, all right, well, one person ends their day at 2 p.m., the other person's day. And so someone's working solo for 3 hours, and then the other person you were pairing with wakes up 3 hours before you. And so making sure you have a clean handoff and plan. And so it's a lot of communication, a lot of thinking ahead, a lot of just being thoughtful.
Thank you for that. So I see a question here from Julissa. Is the open source project the same one offered to clients? And how important is the open source aspect to the product?
I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I'd be happy to jump in and answer this unless Lanny wants to take it. Maybe I'll give my answer, and Josh and Lanny can hold me accountable in case I'm missing something. This is what I typically tell candidates. So we are open source. We remain very committed to being an open source community. Our open source tool is single user and local install. So it's quite limited in the sense that you can only work with a visual data set as large as what your laptop can handle. So 3-ish years ago, we launched our enterprise solution. The enterprise solution is how we've monetized. The main feature differential right now is that it's a Teams version of the open source tool. So it's a collaborative tool. It also allows you, in so doing, it allows you to work with your team in your cloud in the same large scale visual data sets, which is kind of solving its own problem. But that's the uniquity. It's more scalable, it's more performant, more secure, right? There's enhanced security and, forthcoming additional features. But that open source product, while sort of part of who we are, just at our core, also drives and energizes users into the enterprise tool, right? So individual engineers find the open source tool, they love it, they energize, and a lot of cases have in fact come to us asking to up level to the enterprise solution. There's still obviously a sales cycle, but it's nice when they've already heard about us, they already know they like the tool. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, and I think previously we emphasized more on the collaboration, user management, and security side. But I think started from this year, we added more advanced features that, for instance, with data quality panel and model evaluation panel, these advanced features will tap better into the enterprise solution for industries, better scoping their specific problems. Yeah, but we remain very committed to the open source community.
So the Eng team sounds very collaborative. We'd like to dig into the culture a bit deeper. Are there any intentional or surprising steps Voxel 51 has taken to create an inclusive and supportive environment for women? Or parts of the culture that you're just really proud of?
I think, the biggest thing is again, we have this really remarkable COO. Our executive team, of course, is awesome. Our COO, Dave, is particularly involved in just sort of the day-to-day operations, of course. And he's really committed to continuing to leverage whatever tools we need to up-level communication, up-level, for example, our recruiting efforts with respect to women and non-binary folks and people who've been sort of historically repressed in some way. So I feel like we're still figuring out, and I think there's no solution. There's no one right way to ensure that an organization is both inclusive and welcoming and comfortable for people. But I think a good start is that we are committed to dedicating the resources to improving, right? And we tap third-party resources. We've brought in some programming that has helped us kind of shore up our internal communication a little bit and kind of work in a more collaborative capacity. Yeah, that's just the beginning. I mean, again, with just 50 people, I really do feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah. I just add one thing that I think it really, like, initiatives are great and important, but I think what it really comes down to is how it's incorporated in the everyday. I think every time we're like designing an interview process or running a meeting or whatever else we're doing day to day, there's a part of us that's thinking, like, how do we make sure we're doing this in a way where, yes, women feel comfortable, but also, quieter people feel comfortable, or people whose English isn't their first language feel comfortable, right? Like inclusivity, right, isn't like, initiatives are helpful, but what it really comes down to is, are you like being thoughtful in the day-to-day things that you're doing?
This question about how does Voxel 51's mission to bring transparency and clarity to the world's data influence your daily operations and decision making?
Does it honestly influence our day-to-day operations and decision making? I think it's a fair question. Like, is that a day-to-day question? When I think about a mission statement like that, I think it's right at the core of the more strategic stuff that we do when we're talking about, like, of the different things that we can do in 2025 to take the company to the next level, right? Like, we talked about all sorts of different opportunities of, like, different things we could build and different types of customers we could go after. And, considering those options, bringing clarity to the world's data is, a helpful thing to help us decide when we're making big decisions.
What tools and platforms does Voxel 51 utilize to facilitate communication and project management?
So we use Jira a lot. All the status are in sync through Jira, and there has been some Confluence articles. There are lots of video records in our Google Drive. Also the Slack channel. If there is certain domain I haven't touched for a long time and I need something, I usually just search through the Slack. Usually other people have already brought it up. Yeah, I would like to think myself as part of the more quiet side, and there hasn't been any like problem I feel communicating or being able to communicate what I think of very honestly. Like, feel very safe environment to work in.
So for the principal engineer role that you have open, how does this role contribute to the development and scaling of your enterprise solutions, especially processing large-scale visual AI data sets?
Wow, That's so specific. I hope that was taken right out of the job description because you really understand the role. So the role is targeted for one of the two squads that is most focusing on performance and reliability this year. One of the challenges that the company is tackling in 2025 is that the size of data sets that our customers are using is really starting to explode, where we would talk about like 100,000 samples in a data sets, or maybe 500,000. Now we're talking to companies who have 50 million samples in the data set, or they'll have a data lake with 1 billion samples in it. And so the challenge that that squad is tackling this year is how do we bring all of the power of 51 to data which is now several orders of magnitude more than the code was originally intended to handle. And the challenges there are everything from infrastructure to back end to front end, because even when you figure everything out, there's still an enormous amount of data that you want to show on the front end, and you can't show it all at once.